The Anglican Church is a unique and distinctive branch of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. But when we ask what the Anglican Church is, there's really two things to talk about. There's what she is in a visible outward sense, and then there's also what Anglicanism is, the beliefs and practices that define the Anglican Church. So let's first talk about what the Anglican Church is visibly. An important thing to note is that the word Anglican just basically means English. So when we say the Anglican Communion, we're saying that this is a distinctively English branch of that one true church. Similar to how the Greek Orthodox Church are a branch of the one true church, but they have this distinctively Greek flavor to them. They're the Greek way of doing things, their liturgy is in Greek. So for us, we're distinctively English in two ways. The first way is that we are defined by English beliefs and practices that we'll get to later. And also we are defined by communion and lineage that goes back to England. Because most Anglicans in the world aren't actually in England. Most Anglicans are in Africa. However, we still need to trace our way back to England through history. So for instance, here in New Zealand, we have an archbishop. And that archbishop is part of a line of succession that goes right back to New Zealand's first bishop, but that bishop was sent by the Church of England as a missionary, so it's sort of historically linked back to England. But then also here in the present, we need to be linked to the Church of England as well, because the worldwide Anglican Communion sees the Archbishop of Canterbury, that's the head bishop over in England, as our symbolic leader, our symbolic sort of figurehead. So we're all bound together in that way. And we're bound together in the sense also that the Anglican Church together as an international communion meets for councils, we share ideas, we see each other as part of this one big Anglican family. So the Anglican Church is not invisible, it's visible. Invisible basically means that we're not a group of churches who all believe and do similar things. No, we're visibly connected to each other. So when you say, I am going to an Anglican church, that church is run by a priest who was ordained and serves under a bishop who's part of this big, wider network. You can't just buy a building and call it an Anglican church. It doesn't work like that for us. So that's basically what the Anglican Church is in the present. Why is it so important for us to trace our way back to England? Well, it's because we see ourselves as falling along that stream of the true church, the English stream of it. And how did that come to be? Well, contrary to popular opinion, the Anglican Church was not founded by Henry VIII. It was actually founded over a millennium before him when the gospel of Jesus Christ first came to English shores in the first few centuries of Christianity. So what happened was the English church eventually became more and more isolated from the rest of the Roman communion and became more distinctive and unique. We call this period Celtic Christianity. And the Anglican Church today still looks to the Celtic form of Christianity for ideas and influence. However, what happened was Pope Gregory the Great then sent Augustine of Canterbury over to England to re-establish connection there. Augustine became the Archbishop of Canterbury in AD 597, and ever since then, we say that this figure, the Archbishop of Canterbury, is our key figurehead in the church. Also what happened was, ever since Augustine became Archbishop, the Anglican Church fell squarely under Roman rule and influence until the 16th century, which we'll get to later. So that's why we sort of have our patronage back to England. We say that our apostolic succession sort of depends to a degree on Augustine of Canterbury. So that's what the Anglican Church is. Now let's talk about what Anglicanism is, our distinctive beliefs and practices. Let's look at what the sources of Anglicanism are, and then we'll look at overall what Anglicanism is, what the gist of it is. So the sources of Anglican doctrine are what we call the formularies. There's basically 3 documents that define our beliefs and practices. These are the 39 Articles, the Book of Common Prayer, and the Ordinal. Why are these so important to us? Well, in the 16th century, the Anglican Church broke communion with Rome. We were no longer under the rule of the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. That's because the Anglican Church came to believe that the Pope didn't actually have any authority or jurisdiction over England. We agreed with the early church in believing that the ruler of your church should really either be the emperor, which is the English queen or king, or our primate, which is our main archbishop, the Archbishop of Canterbury. We also agreed with the reformers that the Catholic Church had gone astray and had introduced errors and distortions into the Christian faith. So we broke communion with them, and then we said, well, okay, let's lay down what we do believe and what we are going to do. So the 39 Articles were written, and to this day, it is the key document that defines Anglicanism. These are 39 articles of faith that the Anglican Church submits to. They cover a very wide range of theological topics. So from the Trinity, the two natures of Christ, to predestination, justification by faith, what books are in Scripture, and then to things like the sacraments, etc. It covers a lot of material. And that is linked in the description below for you to read, and I really encourage you to give that a good read if you want to know more about Anglicanism. It doesn't take that long to read it. The next formulary is the Book of Common Prayer. Now, the Anglican Church believes that the most authoritative version of the Book of Common Prayer is the 1662 version. Now, no matter where you are in the Anglican Communion, the churches there will still believe that that prayer book is the standard of practice. So here in New Zealand, for instance, we have a New Zealand prayer book. It's our own modernized prayer book that we use. However, even that says that the 1662 book is that standard that it has to be held to. What's important about the prayer book is that it has liturgies for just about everything. It has liturgies for the Sunday Eucharist, for baptisms, for funerals, for weddings, etc. And when you look at these liturgies, they tell you what we believe is happening. So our baptismal liturgy tells you an awful lot about what we believe baptism actually is. Our Eucharistic liturgy tells you what we believe the Eucharist is, and so on. Also, the 1662 prayer book includes a catechism. It's very short, doesn't take long to read. Again, this is all linked in the description below. And that catechism is expected to be believed by people who are going to be confirmed. So that also tells us important points of Anglican belief. Finally, the prayer book also includes what we call the daily office. These are prayers for every morning and evening of every day of the week that can be prayed by individuals or groups, and it's really the bedrock of Anglican spirituality. So that's really important too. And finally, the last formulary is the Ordinal. This is the liturgy for the ordination of deacons, priests, and bishops. It tells you what we believe the priesthood is and what the role of bishops are. And it actually includes a lengthy introduction that delves deep into the Anglican theology of apostolic succession and priesthood. So that's really important too. So those are our main formularies. I really encourage you to give those a read if you're interested in what Anglicanism is all about. Then there's also other things like we have key Anglican writers like Thomas Cranmer, Richard Hooker, Lancelot Andrewes, John Jewell. We're really influenced by their writing, and they sort of also define what Anglicanism is. I've linked a website in the description as well that actually includes the primary sources of those writers, so give that a look as well. There's also particular books that influence us, like Ministerial Priesthood. That's sort of the key Anglican book on what we believe the priesthood is. There's also The Laws of Ecclesiastical Polity by Richard Hooker, very important book for us. And the list goes on. But those three formularies, that's really the most important thing to understand about the sources of Anglicanism. So, in general then, overall, what is Anglicanism? What do we believe the church is? What's distinctive about us? The Anglican Church in the 16th century agreed with the reformers that the Catholic Church had gone astray. So we wanted to wind back the clock and recapture the church when it was at its best. However, we disagreed with a lot of Protestant ideas as well. The Protestants, a lot of them, wanted to basically go all the way back to the beginning and just build the church up from scratch. Say, let's just look at Scripture alone, see what Scripture says, and then build the church up from there. We didn't agree with that. We believe, no, we don't want to go all the way back to the New Testament period and based on how we interpret those texts, rebuild the church. We just want to recapture things before they went astray. And so we say that we want to recapture how the church was in the first millennium of Christianity during those pivotal ecumenical councils. That's what we're trying to get back to. And that's why we still have things like priesthood, bishops, real presence, etc., because that's what the early church believed. It's just we stopped when it started to go astray during the Middle Ages. So Anglicanism has Protestant ideas and Catholic ideas, but we don't see it as that's a conscious effort where we're trying to take the best of both and put it into like a greatest hits Christianity. It's not like that. We're just trying to recapture that first millennium of Christianity. And it so happens that it means that we will have Protestant and Catholic ideas in there. Now, there's big questions that come up. Is the Anglican Church Protestant? Is the Anglican Church Catholic? That's all going to be covered on this channel in the future, so stay tuned for that. And we're going to be making some more videos in this series about what is Anglicanism, so stay tuned. We're going to look at specific topics like the Anglican view of priesthood, Eucharist, baptism, etc. So please check those out, subscribe to our channel and like this video, and thank you very much for watching. God bless.